Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to episode 27 of the Knuckle Sammich podcast, the official MMA podcast of Sauce on the Side. As always, Dippers, I'm your host, Drake, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Thomas R. Shackelford.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Shackelford, today, we really don't have that much to break down. We really don't. I know Leighton C does have a question that he's wanting to ask us, so that'll be kind of fun to listen to, because usually, anytime Leighton C brings a question in about MMA or kickboxing or whatever it may be, it's usually pretty fun, and it's a good time, so hopefully we'll be able to drum something up off of that. We will talk real quick about the Bellator card that was this past weekend. One of our guys, the guy that I said that was a huge underdog on the betting odds, has actually advanced to the finals. So, guys, hopefully you put your bets in on that. We'll talk a little bit about the USA World Team as they get prepared to go to... where is that at?
Budapest, I think?
Budapest, I think that is right. So we'll talk a little bit about wrestling. Mainly just hit on some UFC notes, Bellator notes, and some odd stuff happened in the UFC this week. So, before we get to any of that, Leighton C, you know what to do. Welcome to the Knuckle Sammich podcast with Thomas R. Shackelford, a Sauce on the Side production. Alright guys, so before we break anything down or talk about any fights or things that we're excited for this week, we're actually going to talk about... So Leighton C, our producer, anytime that he asks us if he can, throw in a little nugget, ask us a question, we're all hands on deck, because I don't think we're going to find a guy who's as smart with computers as him. So we kind of let him, like a free roam chicken, do whatever he wants. So Leighton C told us that he had a question for us, wouldn't give us any information beforehand, but he walks in here with more notes than I've ever seen him for any podcast. So, Leighton, what do you got for us?
Well, talking about the question, more of an idea I'd like to get your thoughts on. But before we get to the idea, get you how I got to this point. Saturday night, people go out. I went to a Foo Fighters concert up in St. Louis. Great concert.
Time out.
Talk to me.
Who in the world has a Vision Quest at a Foo Fighters concert?
Hey, been to a Foo Fighters concert?
Absolutely not.
Okay. 3 out of 3 dips, 10 out of 10. I've been to at
Did
least...
they play Monkey Ranch?
They played literally every good song they had. They started at the new album and worked backwards.
It was like a 5-hour long concert.
Okay, now
2
I
hours
like
and
that.
45
Did
minutes
they play Big Me?
Yes.
Big Me and Monkey Ranch, and it's a 3-dipper.
They played 2 hours and 45 minutes.
So they probably did play the whole catalog.
Yes, it was awesome.
I'll tell you what, though. Rarely do you go to a concert and they play their old stuff last. Like, usually they, warm you up to the new stuff.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and Dave Grohl played drums. So the closest thing I could see the vinyl live was that, so that was cool. But yeah, every band ever to go to a Foo Fighters concert, I don't know how to do it. They're awesome. But okay, I'm getting off track here. Anyway, concert was great. Going home was an absolute nightmare. 64 East was closed.
So this is where we get to the fighting.
So in case you don't know, 64 East is where you take to get back to Illinois, the main highway. So we had to drive through downtown, past like 7 or 8 blocks and stop and go with traffic, because every motherfucking car is going that way because it was closed. We finally get across the bridge, finally get home about 2:30 in the morning. So the concert's been over now for 3.5 hours. I walk in, I'm real tired. I feed my cats and go to bed. Turn to watch ESPN and out. I think, okay, I'll just watch Sports Center. So it happened that night. But then below Sports Center, I see that the Terrence Crawford and Jose Benavidez Jr. boxing match was on demand. So I figured, alright, shit. That's probably pretty boring. I'll just watch that. 2, 3 rounds, 10 minutes max. Passed out. Well, if I start off really good. So here we are 1 hour later, I'm still awake watching this fight happen.
I think Crawford knocked him out in like the 11th or something.
12th round.
12th round, like right as soon as
Wait,
the pumpkin
you're
was
like,
up.
you're like 35
11,
minutes in here.
Yeah, we're like 11 and 5/6 of the way to this fight knocks him out finally. But the entire fight was really good. It had a lot of hard hits, a lot of clean shots, body shots, head shots. What do you want to do? It had in there. But every clean shot, they kind of shook it off. And do you know how sometimes fighter shake the head out of another fighter, it's to kind of not get in the fighter's head? I think these guys were actually just not that hurt because they were even bobbled. I think it's like the 11th round, I got really bobbled. So the fight, I was watching this fight, I'm like, man, wouldn't this be awesome if they were wearing 6-ounce gloves? And could
The fight
kick?
would have been over.
But wouldn't it have been great to watch?
It wouldn't have. So it wouldn't have gone that long.
No, but wouldn't it have been awesome though?
Yes, it would have been awesome to watch two men be able to take the same punches with 6-ounce gloves that they took with 14-ounce gloves.
Actually have a knockdown or two and bobble whatever. Because the 145 pounds are welterweight. It's not a whole lot of power.
Yeah.
You put on a 12-ounce glove, it's like getting hit by a pillow.
Yes.
I guess nothing. So the solution. The UKBC. It's a fight league I created, and it stands for Ultimate Kickboxing Championship.
Okay, I like it so far.
Here are the rules of the UKBC. We're going to go boxing rules, straight boxing, square ring, 12 rounds, 3-minute rounds, 10 counts, the knock, the wooks, everything. The gloves will be 6 to 7-ounce gloves, much lighter than the 8 to 20-ounce gloves they use now, but heavier than the 4-ounce glove used in the UFC. Also, to help the fights become prolonged, there will be a thin pad over the ankle and the foot area, so people can actually, get the money's worth, not see a guy just die in 2 minutes of the fight. Clinching will be allowed, but in the clinch, you cannot throw an elbow nor a knee. Because the goal is to get out of the clinch, because no one wants to watch a clinch fight.
This is already the wimpiest fight I've ever seen in my life.
We're going to use the UFC weight class system, so we have eight weight classes and not 178. Most important part of the fight, there is no going to the ground. Nor may a boxer put their hand on the ground in order to throw a kick or a punch. Does that not sound like the best thing you could ever watch? Do you not think Conor McGregor would love to be in this?
No.
Why would he not love to be in this? Why would he want to get taken down by Khabib and get mauled for 15
Nobody
minutes?
wants to hit people with shin pads on.
They have shin pad.
You said
A pad over the lower ankle and the foot. He can kick him in the shin.
So it's like an ankle brace just with a pad on it.
Yeah, basically.
no. This is no good.
What?
This is wimpier than sports. So the reason why that fight went 12 rounds was because with boxing you only really have two targets. Basically the bread basket and the head.
And they were hitting the shit out of those two targets.
The boxers, when you only have those two targets, you can plant your feet a certain way and move a certain way and roll. And those punches, a lot of them aren't landing clean punches. Plus, add in the extra padding on the gloves. And they're, like you said, they're 145 pounds and in crazy shape, so they can take a punch.
You ever heard of rope-a-dope? That's why that works.
I have.
Because all you have to do is roll with the punch.
If there's a really hard puncher in the group, like a Manny Pacquiao or like a Roberto Duran or something around that weight, that's why those guys are so special, because they can clobber guys, without just picking up decisions. But maybe that's a cool fight league for you. But for me, I definitely don't want to watch something that they have it's a professional and they have any pads on whatsoever aside from the knuckles. B, why can't you knee? Why wouldn't you want to knee or elbow in the clinch? Why did you
I want to get
that?
out of the clinch. I want to see people just throw haymakers and kick the shit out of each other.
But what's more beautiful than a knee knockout or an elbow knockout?
Black Beast knockout against that Russian guy.
That's true.
Okay, fine.
I'm not saying you're.
If it took off the foot pad, are you okay with it then?
I would be more okay with it. Well, I'll just give you a little backstory. When I was a young pup, I wanted to be a pro fighter. Like that was I did want to go to college.
Hey, you've never died, Thomas.
I'm definitely, this dream died. The only fight I'm getting in is when my neighbor tries to attack my dog. in the story, I trained for a summer. After wrestling season, I had to do something. So I found this little taekwondo kickboxing gym, started training in it, trained a summer. Wanted to fight. That's all I wanted to do. So I got set up with a fight. We drove up to St. Louis. All I took was some pants, a cup.
This is the best story you guys have ever heard, by the way. We have been waiting 27 weeks for this story. We have gotten here, guys. So this is the best story you'll ever hear in your lives.
All right. I'll try and abbreviate it. Anyways, my coach just said, hey, you need to get these kickboxing pants were like these thin.
What was your
long
nickname?
pants. He just called me Kickboxer.
Okay, that's the best part of the story.
Because everybody had nicknames. There was like a rabbit and a snake, and I just didn't know. And he's like, "Well, I'll just call you Kickboxer." I said, "Okay." So I go up there. He said I needed to have these shorts. I needed to have a cup and a mouthpiece. They have gloves. This is a fight. Like, I'm going up to fight. So we go up there that day. Go in. It's in a bar. Pretty nice looking bar, but it's in a bar. Go back.
Smoking allowed, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't know that yet. When I walk in, it just looks like a nice bar. And so they show me to my locker room. We go back there. I have to do the weigh-in. I weighed like 219 or something. He didn't tell me anything about being in a weight class, so I just went like I was. A little chubby. Wasn't really running or anything. Probably about 10, 15 pounds chubbier than what I should have been. My guy weighed in at 185. Shredded to the bone, six-pack, probably like 6'3", taller than me. And I thought, well, that's fine. I'll beat a skinny guy's ass all day long. I ain't got no problem with this. So after you weigh in, they say, go pick out your gloves. I go over. There's this gigantic, like, washing machine box with gloves in it. And they're the old school gloves. They're like tie up, like shoestring tie gloves. And they're like, well, if you have your own gloves, you can use those as long as you're fighting amateur, so they have to be 16 ounces. Well, I didn't bring no gloves, so I'm going for the box gloves. I reach in there, they're wet, they're all soggy. They've probably never been washed. They're wet from sweat and blood, probably. So I'm like, it's still at this point, it's fuck it, I'm gonna kick the shit out of this dude. I don't care. I've been training all summer for this.
Running,
just strictly doing just drills, learning how to. I'd wrestled. I was an okay wrestler. I had about a 1 month span where I was
But this is not an MMA fight.
No, this isn't MMA. So aside from just watching boxing matches as a kid growing up. The only stand-up stuff I knew was in this about 2.5 month span of me showing up to this Taekwondo gym without a ring and just learning this is a front kick, this is a round kick, this is a jab, this is a cross. Now, I did a shitload. I did train a lot, but it was all skill work, no conditioning whatsoever. Anyways, still in my mind, I'm going to kill this man. So me and my coach go, tapes my hands up. We're getting ready to go in. The fight card starts probably, 2 hours. We're chilling out in the locker room. Well, I start noticing people start putting shin pads on. And I'm like, what is this? And there's some kid fights. There's like kid fights, like 10 and under fights. And then there's teen fights. And then there's amateur fights. And then there's pro fights. Well, I was like top of the bill amateur type fight. So the guy I was fighting was probably getting ready to turn pro because he was the top of the amateur bill. Still didn't matter. I'm gonna kill this man. But I did.
In your head, you thought this is for me. You thought that you were going to be the guy turning pro after this fight.
Well, I mean, 0-0. There's no reason to fight amateur. I was only there because it was the only fight I could get. So the fights start going, and then the guys come, and at some point, like the guy running, basically the Burt whatever of the UFC comes, and he's like, hey man, where's your shin pads? You're fighting Amy, right? And I'm like, yeah, I don't have shin pads. What do you mean you ain't got shin pads? I said, I'm here for a fight. I don't have shin pads. And he goes, well, we got to get you some shin pads. And I said, well, I don't even know what shin pads look like. We don't even have those in my gym. So me and my coach are just warming up. I'm just hitting mitts. I'm going out there with no shin pads if they don't find me any. So probably like 10 minutes before I walk out, they bring me shin pads, tape them onto me. They were too small. They didn't go to the bottom of my foot, and they didn't reach up all the way to my knee. But they tape them up on me, put them under my pants. So already I'm like, now I'm pretty flexible, so I had some pretty good kicks. And I thought, well, I'm going to wail on this guy's head with my shin, no problem. Well, now I got like 2 inches of padding. This is, there goes one of my weapons, but his head's still going to be there for me to punch off. I had an okay punch. So, 5 minutes comes by, I'm sweating it up, getting my sweat going. Where's your headgear? I said, what? Headgear, where's your headgear? I didn't bring my wrestling headgear. My ears are fine. I'm punching this man in the face. So you're fighting amateur. You're supposed to have headgear. I said, I don't have any pads. I brought a cup, my pants, and a mouthpiece.
You came to protect the moneymakers.
That's
That was
all
it.
I needed. That's all I needed. So they start, everybody in like the red corner, whatever corner I'm in, get him some headgear. So all these people are scrambling around trying to get me headgears. I'm essentially about to walk out. Got my good sweat going. None of them fit me. They're all like skinny guys. I'm like the biggest guy in the room, and I got a big head and a big curly mop. Couldn't get headgear to fit me. So he's like, you know what? You're fine. Just go ahead. So I start my walk out. You know, they call my name. O&O from Carbondale, Illinois. Blah, blah, blah. I start walking out there. It is smoky in there. It is smoky like your grandma playing bingo for 5 hours smoky. I ain't done no cardio in about 2 months. 15 pounds chubbier than I should have been. I walked to the ring.
You should have just been ripping cigs for cardio at this point.
I should have just grabbed a cig out of the crowd. I was gloved up. Couldn't do it.
Did you have a big old over jacket coat thing on?
No, I just walked out there shirtless.
You're forgetting. He came with only a cup, pants, and a mouthpiece.
I came pants, cup, and a mouthpiece, and a t-shirt and shorts that I was wearing. So I get in the ring, and then the lights dim, and this music starts playing. And they go, in your hometown, so-and-so, with a record of 16-0. From, the place was Fisher's Bar and Grill. I believe that he was a Shamrock fighter out of the Shamrock Promotions that's still over there.
You ever heard of Ken Shamrock, Mr. Layton?
No, not those guys.
No, yes,
so he comes out, and he's ripped to the bone. Anyways, that bastard's got headgear on. So I got shin pads on. I can't kick his head off. He's got headgear on. I ain't going to be able to punch his head off. So I'm just thinking, I know there's dirty stuff in boxing. I watch enough boxing and kickboxing to know what's dirty. And I just thought, it's about to get dirty. I'm sorry, brother. So I think I don't even know what the round time was. I want to say there were 3-minute rounds, maybe 2 minutes, 3 2s or 3 3s.
It sounds like you were well prepared.
Well, that first round, I hung in there, man. I was wailing on him. I have the video somewhere. At one point, I did throw an uppercut that just barely missed him, and it looked like a Hadouken from Street Fighter. But after that first round, I was a punching bag, and I wasn't really hitting that many punches on him. But like I said, I started to get a little dirty. When you clinch, this is where your story comes in. When you clinch, you're supposed to let him go when the ref says go. I was getting in some rabbit punches. That's where you punch him behind the back and the kidneys. A couple times he started to say clinch. I was pulling his head down like a collar tie and uppercutted him in the face. The kid started getting pissed. But that's just what you get, man. I mean, you guys show up, you want me to fight in pads and not fight in the clinch like you want, you get a dirty bastard out of me. It ended up, at one point I did knock him down. He kicked at me and I punched him and he lost balance and fell, and I tried punching him when he was on the ground. Not because I was trying to get out of the fight, just because I wanted to fuck him up. And
you were there for a fight.
I was there for a fight. The ref stopped me. Anyways, it ended. He did a spinning round kick to my chest. Thought killed me. I couldn't lift a weight for a year. I couldn't do a push up for 6 months. I never went to the doctor because I ain't a pushy. And I had one more match after that, but that was pretty much the end of my fighting career right there. I got hurt so bad that I just thought, I better go to college, and that's what I did. But to kind of wrap it into your story, pads are for pussies. And I would have murdered that man had I not had pads on that day.
Okay, just so everybody else can just enjoy this story and listen how funny it is. Tell us about the camp that you went to immediately after this and what had happened.
Should we save this for a different day?
No. This just ties right into this story because you said that you told on yourself. You couldn't do a push-up for 6 months.
So, one of my heroes at the time. So when I say I wanted to be a pro fighter, this was 2000. This was the summer of 2003. You know who was big at that time? The Militich. Well, Chuck kind of hadn't broken out huge yet. This was the Militich. Huh?
He was born huge.
Well, I mean, he was huge at the time, but at this time, this was the Militich camp. You had Tim Sylvia, you had Matt Hughes, Jeremy Horn, Robbie Lawler. You had all these murderers. And
You've heard of Pat Militich, right?
I have. If I saw him, I could not point him out to you.
But you've heard the name.
But I know the name.
Yeah, the Miltage fighting system.
So he had a camp about like 7 hours from where we live, and I was already an okay wrestler. I wanted to learn kickboxing so I could go up to that camp and be a pro fighter. So after I got my chest kicked in, I decided college was probably a better option, so I went to college. But I still loved fighting, so I watched fights all the time. And I was watching a video in my English class one day. Now this is before this internet. Still at this time, you had to have some pretty specific sites. You weren't just surfing the web, you know. So I always went to the UFC.tv, and so I'm sitting there watching the build-up for Frank Trigg versus Matt Hughes 1. And my English teacher, who I liked at the time, Mr. Schotten, came over there and started talking to me about it, and I started telling him a little bit. He started getting interested, so we just always talked about fights, and I'd tell him about wrestling, and he'd ask me if Jackie Chan was a real fighter, and I said probably not. I mean, I don't know, but anyways, we kind of had this little buddy thing going on. Well, there was a little jiu-jitsu MMA school around here, and he started going. Well, so that was the summer of 03. April comes along. I'd already had my chest kicked. I basically didn't work out at all from this time. So he comes to me and says, "Hey, guess who's coming to do a seminar for in my class?" And I was like, "Who?" And he goes, "That guy, the guy that trains the guy that you were showing me the video of." And I'm like, "Huh?" He said, "Pat Militich." I said, "Pat Militich is what?" And he said, "He's doing a seminar at my MMA school this weekend." And I said, I had to take my girlfriend to prom that weekend. Now, it sounds bad because I wasn't in high school no more. My girlfriend was. We're the same age. We'll throw that out there. She just got held back or something, or I got boosted forward. I was so
Shackelford was 26 at this time.
I was 28 and a half, and she was 16 going to her very first prom. No, but I knew I had prom that night, and I hadn't worked out a single lick. Couldn't do anything. I couldn't hardly raise my arms above my head still. But it's Pat Militich. So I kind of thought, do I really need to take her out to eat, or can I take this $40 and go see Pat Militich and do the seminar? Well, shout out to Mr. Schotten, wherever he is. He moved away after. He actually paid half he was like, "You know what? If you can get $20, I'll pay the other half." And I was like, "Are you serious?" He was serious. So I showed up, go to Pat Militich's seminar. It would go through the day. I ain't done nothing. So I went with my teacher. He was a little bitty guy. He was taking it easy all my day. My chest hurt so bad, but it was Pat Militich. So I just did all these drills that he was showing us to do. One of the best days of my life. And then at the end, you know, the Militich system was really, really big on conditioning. Like, they were known for their fighting in the gym and their conditioning. So at the end, he says, "Well, we do these conditioning drills, just mental toughness drills." We started with like squats. We were doing like body squats, and I could do those okay. Well, then he was like, "We'll just do the push-ups next." Now, I haven't done a push-up since I got kicked in the chest. I was probably doing bench press and curls the day before I got kicked in the chest. So I get down there, and I do about maybe 5 to 6 push-ups, maybe. And it's hurting so bad I have to get on my knees. And my hero, Pat Militich, walks over there, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, my chest is hurting. And before I could say, "Hey, 6 months ago I got spinning back kicked with my sternum and probably broke my fucking sternum, but I didn't go to the doctor because I ain't no pussy," he says, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm 19 years old, or 18 years old." And he goes, What kind of a pussy 18-year-old can't do 5 push-ups?" And so I just look him in the eye, and I just get back, and I just try and do as many push-ups as I can. So,
that is the best. That was your hero. That was everybody's hero.
Legitimately, that was one of my heroes. 6 months before, I was 100% sure I was going to pack up my Nissan Sentra with all 20 of my CDs and my 3 T-shirts and 2 pairs of sweatpants and drive to Iowa and become a professional fighter. 6 months later, he's calling me a pussy in downtown Carterville because I can't do a push-up.
That's awesome. But one more thing, and then
That's my favorite. That is my favorite fighting story ever.
that's just to follow up on. I kind of want to talk about this anymore, honestly. But 2 quick notes about this before and then I get to the fun stuff. The pads are going to be like the thickness of a UFC glove, so like maybe.
But why have pads at all? That's my question.
Because
You want him to be able to withstand a little bit.
yeah, because watching the fight was fun, seeing guys get hit like that.
You just want to see
But
people
they
get
just
hit.
wouldn't do any damage at all, and that bothered me. It bothered me that a guy get hit directly in the face.
So there's
And
no happy medium for your fighting leagues that you like.
No,
Because, like, the UFC, like, one punch could basically flatline a
it's look at
dude.
this. You can
Yes.
do that here too. It's just a little bit heavier, so maybe it's not.
So I just want to make sure I got the rules right. The clinching is minimal,
Yeah, you can punch in the clinch.
but you can't knee or elbow.
Knee elbow.
And you want thicker gloves.
I want 1 ounce heavier than the UFC maximum,
It'd be
So
2.
5 ounce
Yeah.
gloves.
and 1 ounce lower than the boxing minimum, so 6 to 7.
Oh, okay. I mean, here's what you're gonna get, dudes. Brain trauma, beating the shit out of each other.
One more point. One more point.
He
before we
said,
move on.
this is the XFL.
You want everybody to be like Nate Diaz, just bouncing 200 punches off people's heads.
Tell me he's not fun to watch.
He is fun to watch.
Okay.
You may have. That's what I'm saying. It may not be for me, but you probably have something.
I
here.
think you have me.
Now, Thomas. Quickly, who are the 4 best strikers in MMA fighting?
like right now or ever.
Yeah, right now.
I would go with probably like Nate Diaz, like an Edson Barboza. Connor's got to be up there. Anderson Silva. I know Marlon Moraes.
You tell me
Max
those
Holloway?
guys.
Max Holloway.
Tell me those guys will win a final league. We have to really get taken down at all. No, all you have to do is stand up with the guys, mano a mano. They wouldn't want that.
No and yes, because some of them do have some kickboxing fights, but some of them they prefer MMA, and I think they prefer MMA because of the smaller gloves and the other stuff.
It's the money. If we bought UFC money,
they do.
if we said, "Hey Connor, here's maybe you want to fight Khabib, you want to fight a guy, and I get taken down."
Yeah, you could be right. I know there's a super good kickboxer named Joe Schilling, who's one of the best American kickboxers out there, but he's 2-4 in MMA, but he still fights MMA because he makes more money doing it. He makes more money being one of the worst MMA fighters in the world than being one of the best American kickboxers.
Yep.
You probably have something here. I'm just saying it ain't for me.
I think the average fan that just likes to see brawls would be all about this.
They would eat it. Well, you're a casual fan.
Cannot be more casual.
You have something here. You
The
have something.
UKBC.
You know what?
happening.
The UKBC is in St. Louis at Fisher's Bar and Grill in a smoky room
got my backyard.
with a bunch of dudes like me just beating the shit out of each other with pads on all over.
I think you're right. I really think you're right.
Good idea. Let's make it happen.
So Leighton, his next business venture is going to be buying Fisher Bar and Grill.
Make it happen.
If it's still open, it was kind of in the ghetto.
It's probably still in the ghetto.
would
Normally,
imagine-
ghetto bars don't close down because anybody goes to the one place that serves beer in the ghetto.
Latency, I definitely think you're onto something there. But Shackelford, you want to talk about the Bellator fights this last weekend?
Yeah, let's move on to some manly no pad fighting.
All right. So we'll hit on it quick. I gave you Ryan Bader as he was an underdog. I thought that he was by far the favorite in the Grand Prix for the heavyweights. But as it turns out, he has now cruised to the finals. He's looked basically unbeatable up to this point. Go through this Bellator card that we had this last weekend. Tell me if you think Bader looks like the guy who's going to be the champ. And tell us a little bit about Roy Nelson unfortunately getting whooped.
Yeah, so they did it kind of weird. Friday night they had Bellator 207, and Saturday night they had Bellator 208. The highlights of 207, the Friday night one was Bader was all over Mitrione. I mean, I don't know if Mitrione threw more than 2 punches. It was just Bader coming out there, getting the takedown, and just using really what I think is I think maybe the next transition in MMA, you see these kind of transitions happen where, you saw Anderson Silva use that little gnarly front kick knocking people out. Next thing you see it all the time. Or Benson Henderson used that low outside calf kick, and all of a sudden now everybody uses it. But we got to give credit to Ben Askren on this, using that just folk-style top wrestling, just getting a rabbit ride, cross-wrist control, and just the guys aren't getting away, and you're getting good ground and pound the whole time. That's Bader Mitch Rowan was never going to get up. He actually posted a really funny post-fight video to his Instagram that he just said, "Hey, that guy whooped my ass. I could have had a Snickers break down there because I wasn't ever getting him off of me." And that's just what it was. And you did call it. I picked King Mo originally. I actually thought King Mo was going to be the dark horse, but then Bader knocked him out with a jab in like 2.5 seconds. And I don't see how he doesn't win the tournament. I mean, the headliner of 208, the Saturday night card, was actually Chael versus Fedor in the other semifinal. The fight lasted maybe about 2 minutes, and it was insanity. It was two dudes that looked like greased pigs back and forth until finally Fedor pounded Chael's head off the mat a few times.
Did you see the promo with Chael Sonnen? He was dressed up like
was it the Apollo Creed one? He was
yes,
dressed up? Yeah,
yes.
That's the difference between how dark and kind of off the beaten path the UFC went with the Conor versus Khabib thing, and then you got Chael doing pro wrestling style Apollo Creed versus Rocky or versus Drago over here. In standing next to, when it first happened, that promo, I was like, that's a little cheesy. But then after all the Conor Khabib bull that happened, I'm like, you know what? Thank God for a guy like Chael. He's promoting a hilarious, goofy, like USA versus Russia thing, Apollo style, but it's clean and it's just nice to see.
Yeah, the American gangster dressed up, looking like he's Uncle Sam.
He didn't look horrible. He got hit. So Fedor's got those bombs for hands. He got hit within probably 10 seconds, dropped. I've never seen Chael dropped like that. He did get back up, got a couple takedowns, even mounted him at one point. Where he really messed up was at one point Fedor went into turtle position and Chael tried it's basically you have like a seatbelt grip over the arm, just a little over under, and he tried to do a front flip over. And if you keep that grip tight enough and get your head in the right spot, they'll actually come with you. Chael just did basically a headstand and then flopped down, and then Fedor binked about 20 hammers down on him, and that was pretty much the end. But if Chael, who was only weighing about 220, who's really kind of a chubby middleweight, if he was able to get Fedor down, and even mount him, I think Bader, I think he's probably going to put the works on Fedor.
Yeah,
which
I agree.
Is going to get your pick from the beginning. You guys
got to listen to these dark horse Bellator things.
I called the Ed Ruth pick, but you for sure called the Bader pick.
Yeah, you got to get on these Bellator, and I think those are some of the best odds in fighting. Whenever you find a guy like that, because whenever it comes down to Bellator, you have all these big names that are the heavy favorites, but most of them are past their prime.
Yeah.
And you have a guy like Ryan Bader who's still really, really good. He could still go onto the UFC roster and still take fights.
He was on a 5-fight win streak when he left the UFC.
Yeah. So
he had those hiccups against Rumble and John Jones.
Yeah, all you have to do is just find the best fighter, and you don't throw the names out the window. Just watch each one of them, their last previous fights, and if they haven't fought in 5 years, mark them off. But yeah, I think this is the same thing that we're going to see out of Ed Ruth. So get on those early. The odds are always great. But I saw Roy Nelson lost. I was actually watching that fight, and I was in Nashville this weekend, and it was a bummer.
Sergey just smashed him. He really smashed with that jab. Just Sergey Karatanov, some people that used to watch Pride back in the day might know him. He was one of the guys that was pegged to be a real front runner to maybe beat Fedor, and then he had a few slip-ups. I think he was some kind of paratrooper for the Russian military. He used to come out looking...
Wait a second, that means he jumps out of a plane?
Yeah, and he's a gigantic guy.
They don't make parachutes that big.
They apparently do, because he ain't dead.
Wow.
He used to come out to the ring dressed like almost like a G.I. Joe with like a beret and stuff. That's what he used to come out to the ring to. It was super scary.
Wait a second, I remember that. Actually,
Yeah.
I do. I didn't realize that was the same guy.
That's the same dude. And he used that jab. He trashed Roy Nelson, a guy that's not easily trashed.
No. Roy Nelson's not the best fighter, but it's hard to just completely dominnate him.
Yeah,
And this dude did.
No, I don't think he's ever been knocked out. Well, Mark Hunt did have that walk-off KO on him, but I mean, this might have been more brutal than that.
Yeah. I was really bummed. Roy Nelson's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite like all-time fighters. He's awesome. Big country. You can't hate him. So a few little... Anything else you want to talk about the Bellator fights?
You know, they had some okay fights on there. Benson Henderson finally picked up a win. You remember he went over there. I think he was 0-3.
Yeah, he went a huge
just
skid.
picked up a win. Lorenz Larkin got a win. That's really about it. There was the Anatoly Tokov guy that fought Alexander Shlemenko. He looked pretty tough. So maybe they're getting some names in there for that 185-pound division. But other than that, just solid fights, you know. Bellator, you know, what's kind of crazy about them is you get people to get pissed about the Conor and Khabib stuff, and this is a hype business, and people trash talking is the only way to get stuff. So the Conor Khabib fight sold 2.4 million pay-per-view buys, just smashed the previous any MMA record. These were two solid, good MMA cards that were promoted just, hey, I like this guy, but I've got to fight him to get this championship. They probably didn't get no views. Nobody watched them. So that just kind of shows you where, you know, people will complain about the other stuff, but they're also going to watch that stuff, where these cards were just as good, but nobody watched them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's Floyd Mayweather 101. Like if you want to tune in, you're tuning in, no matter what.
Yeah.
Whether you want to see Floyd get dominated or you want to see Floyd win, you had no guys who were just like, I'm indifferent on Floyd.
No, nobody. You either he's a wife beater and you hate him, or he's the best businessman of all time.
Yes, you're not in between, and for that reason, he sells. Yeah. And that's all it is. So a few big headlines. Right off the top, Eddie Alvarez signs to ONE FC. That was the same promotion with Ben Askren.
Yeah.
Pretty good get for them.
And good for him, too, because, you know, it doesn't always end well for these guys. He was always known as the Underground King. I think he won a Dream title, which Dream was a Japanese promotion. He won some Bellator titles multiple times. He won the UFC title. So he's really, aside from Pride, he's really won a title in all the major organizations. And ONE FC is doing a really good job. They're the main Asia promotion right now. Rich Franklin is actually like one of their main CEO guys. Like you said, they had Ben Askren.
Is he teaching history courses on the side?
Yeah, he's teaching them American history. You know, I don't know what platform they're on. I forget what platform they're on, but as far as outside of America, ONE FC is probably one of the bigger ones.
Absolutely.
And they said that he was getting paid a lot, like $1 million a fight or something.
Yeah, I know Ben Askren said he would have taken a pay cut if he came to the UFC.
Oh, like a huge pay cut. I mean, they're paying these guys well. They're getting tons of views, just not in America. So, look, if I was a fighter, if I survived my first fight ever, I wouldn't mind going. You get a free trip to Thailand or Japan or China. You get all these really, really exotic, nice locations they fight in with more viewers than what the UFC and stuff's getting, and more money. It's hands down a smart move.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a win for Alvarez, win for ONE FC. All around, just a good deal there. So, second on our list of just topics here, Khabib, he's threatening to leave the UFC. Came out with this really bizarre post talking about how he didn't need the UFC. They could keep their purse that they were holding from him. He didn't need anything from that. Then it turns out that he's calling out Floyd Mayweather, and then Floyd Mayweather said that he would fight him too. So What are your initial thoughts on this whole ordeal?
If you look at the history of the UFC, Khabib's not going anywhere. They are notorious on their contracts.
Real quick though, everybody that hated Conor and was like, "Oh, Khabib's the exact opposite." He's doing the same thing that Conor did. So
he did all the same things Conor did. He pushed him, spit on him, fought somebody out of the cage. Then he goes over and he's got these videos with Putin, that insane Chechen dictator that we were talking about, buys him a car and he's hanging out with that guy. Now that may be just like, hey, if I don't hang out with this guy, he strings me up by my toenails. But yeah, listen, he benefited from that fight. He benefited more than Conor did from that fight. But when you look back at the UFC and their contracts and guys trying to hold out, and BJ Penn, that's how he got his welterweight title stripped from after he beat Matt Hughes. And I believe he was in a contract dispute. He wanted to bump up to heavyweight to fight Randy Couture, and they wouldn't let him. So he just said, hey, my family's rich. I don't have to fight. So he sat out like 2 years. Randy wanted to fight Fedor. They couldn't get Fedor in, so Randy tried to retire and then go fight Fedor. They put him in court. Basically, they'll take you to court until you're just like, hey, I can't be in court. They're like a really bad divorce. They'll take you to court until you run out of money and then get their shit anyways.
Right.
And the two biggest examples I can give you of this, Tito Ortiz and Frank Shamrock. Now, I think it's changed in the last couple of years, but there was probably a 5-year run where their names were not in the UFC record books, Hall of Fame, Championship, anything. If you looked up Tito or Frank Shamrock on the UFC's website, it would just say not found.
That's crazy.
Yeah, these were two. At one time, these two guys carried that promotion, and they just wiped them out. They just said, well, these guys never existed.
Yeah, and next time that you think that this is all about fighting, just remember, it's a business.
Yeah,
it's a business. That is a business move. That is not a fighting move. What do you think? Do you think that the Khabib and Floyd Mayweather fight will ever go down?
No, and no, and do not kid yourself. There is no way Khabib's going to beat Floyd. Floyd would love it because Floyd would probably get another $100 million payday. Khabib would love it. He would probably get a $20 million. Whatever Conor got, he would probably get that close to that same purse. It's gonna look worse than the Conor fight. You know why? Because Khabib
can't take him down.
Well, yes, Khabib does have that right hand, but how many really good right-handed... The thing that made the Conor fight fun was Conor was a southpaw. He's a lot bigger than Floyd, and when I broke it down, I had to write an article for that. That's before we had this actual show. I kind of said, like, hey, if Conor's probably got a 1 to 3 round window where he could probably catch him with some stuff, but anything after that, it's a track meet, and Conor's in trouble. Well, it's essentially a track meet from round 1 on with Khabib because he doesn't have anything tricky. He has a jab and a cross, or a jab and an overhand, and Floyd's seen those since he was about 2 years old. So they would love it. It would be a ton of money. You know, Dana's probably sitting back like, oh, you know, we just made the biggest year ever off of that one boxing match. Maybe we could. So I'll never say never with Floyd Mayweather because probably as soon as that video came out of Khabib going out, you know, chatting up with Ellerby or whatever that dude's name is, he probably was like, yo, Dana, what's up? You want to make some money?
Yeah, no. I don't think it'll happen, but it's fun. People like to talk about it. Next on our list, we have the price for the Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, basically 15 years too late, round 3. It is November 24th, and it will cost you a sharp $50 bill.
No, $49.99.
Okay, $49.99. So it will not cost you a sharp $50 bill, $49.99. What do you think about that? That is way too high priced.
This is probably more than I paid for Chuck Tito 1 and 2, maybe combined. Because I want to say the UFC was like $25.99 back then or something.
Yeah, it was a lot cheaper.
A little steep.
Yes.
They do have maybe like 8 or 10 fights on the card, but The only names I really saw was, Gleason Tebow versus Efren Escudero. Filthy Tom Lawler's on there fighting somebody. And the one that jumped out the most, Dave Terrell, who actually, he fought for the UFC championship. Evan Tanner beat him. This dude was a wild man back in the day, around 2001, 2002, 2003, and then just fell off the earth. Big time Gracie Jiu-Jitsu fighter. I think he was friends with the Diaz brothers. I don't know that this dude's fought in like 15 years. I don't remember him fighting since Evan Tanner knocked him out in like 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, I feel like this is like, for one, $50 for this thing is way too expensive. I don't think that they're going to have the draw that they thought. I think that if they had made it $20, they would have probably made more money just because more people will buy it. I think this is going to be one of those events that people try to stream and illegally get, which will kind of be a bummer to both parties involved. But, I mean, you ask $50 to watch a washed up fight like that, that's what you're gonna get. And like you said, these guys who are even on the undercard here, or maybe not the undercard but the official card, that are even that you get in that $50, all of them are well past their prime too. I mean, we talked about Gleason Tebow, how he beat Khabib 6 years ago. So I don't think I'm going to buy it. I'm going to watch it somehow. Maybe if we can get like enough people to go in on that, because $50 for this.
Hey, Golden Boy Oscar De La Hoya probably thinks this is a good deal. He's usually selling boxing matches for $99.99. So he's with like 3 fights on it. So he's probably like, "Hey, I'm giving this away. $50, $49.99, and I'm giving you 10 fights. I'm giving this away."
Yeah, I definitely don't get that. So the last bit of information here, I don't know if I can read your writing. What exactly does that say?
Connor at Jerryland.
Oh, okay. This is what I want to talk about.
Yeah, MacMan on the field, catching passes, throwing dead ducks.
Did you see that pass?
That was we gotta give him some credit, because it went more than 10 yards, and this man has probably never held a real football in his whole life. Just to be clear, he's from Ireland.
Yes. No.
Football is a circular ball that they kick through a goal in his country.
In my head, as soon as this happened, I immediately there's some points in my life that I forget that people don't watch football and aren't eat up with football like I am.
They don't even know it exists.
Yes, really. At that point, it was such an eye opener. I'm like, and everybody's like, "Oh, Conor McGregor can't throw a football." In my head, I'm like, some people don't even probably know what football is, and it just blew my mind. But Conor at Jerryland. It was funny because all the Cowboys, whenever they'd score or get a first down, they'd get up and do the Conor McGregor walk.
The billionaire strut, I think they're calling it.
So it was awesome to see that. But my initial thought, as soon as I saw this, I texted you and I said, Conor's going to sell out Jerryland. And if you guys don't know what Jerryland is, if you're just a sheer MMA guy, Jerryland is the nicest stadium in the United States of America.
How big is the jumbo screen up there?
The jumbo screen is so big that whenever they put it up, people were complaining because punters were hitting it. And it's not like the ceiling's low. The ceiling is like a normal height for an NFL stadium, and I think it's even raised above that because I've seen it from the outside, and I've seen Scott Trade and I've seen Jerryland. And Scott Trade, it's not, you kind of think how in the world can people punt in this thing? It's not that tall. Jerryland is a mammoth of a stadium, and the screen goes from the top of that all the way till range where punters were hitting it.
Hitting it, dinging lights out on it.
I'm not 100% sure how big it is.
It was just big. That's what I was wanting you to tell. I didn't know the exact size, but I remember when they first got it, punters were punting the ball into it.
Yeah, they were hitting it. Dallas isn't necessarily known for the fights.
But they said, there was, I seen a bunch of different videos pop out on Twitter from just not only analysts, just sideline people, people that work the sidelines, work the sticks, or work with the players like rehab and stuff like that. And they were posting videos. All of them were saying like of all the guests they've ever had and had out on the field, that Conor McGregor absolutely had the biggest buzz, had the stadium buzzing like no person ever had before. And I think he was there selling his freaking Irish whiskey, to be honest. I think they were doing some kind of promo for his whiskey there. I don't know if they're selling it in the stadium or what. But I bet you he could sell that stadium out. Now, the UFC has been kind of... They don't do a lot of stadium shows like that. And I don't really know why.
The basketball attendance. So if you know the breakdown of a stadium, like it would be like a basketball size attendance, 108,000 people.
So I want to say the biggest I remember the UFC ever doing was GSP versus maybe like Koscheck or something in Canada, and they had like 50,000 people in there. I bet you, I would bet money, even if they sold it as like a 50 to 60 to 75,000 person, they would sell that out. Now, I don't know 108,000, but the only one I remember being a big as like maybe the first Pride at the Saitama Arena in Japan had like 80,000 people.
They could sell out AT&T.
There's probably a good chance. I'm telling you, the crowd, they went nuts in Dallas for him. And I don't know, I haven't been following too much. So the way Dallas is essentially the Conor McGregor of football, right?
Yes.
They haven't won a ton of games this year.
And they're still every Sunday night.
And they're sold out every single weekend for 16 weeks. You know, people are like, Conor's lost 3 of his last 4. He just sold the biggest pay-per-view of all time with 0 help from the B side. So if you get him an A side guy, if you could do Diaz Conor 3 there, and you're going to sell out. I guarantee it.
I guarantee it. So I'm looking at the dimensions of the Jumbotron. It is 175 feet wide. So it is 53 meters. So basically, think half of a football field.
It's that big.
And that's how big it is.
Oh, imagine some fights under that. Imagine if you've ever been to a fight, they have a bunch of TVs set up, but imagine just no matter where you're sitting in the building, you can look up at a big screen television and just be like, you're at home with your feet kicked up.
Yeah, most of the time they don't even sell. Whenever you go to these fights, they don't sell the upper deck. But there you could, because people might not necessarily be able to see the fight itself, but they can see 175 feet of the fight right in front of their eyes.
And if you know anything about Jerry, you know that he loves nothing more than selling that place out. He likes that stadium more than he likes his players. If one of his players came in there and said this stadium looks like shit, he'd cut him. It didn't matter who.
Oh, dude, I know almost every single week of college football that I've watched. So college plays on Saturday, and then the NFL plays on Sunday. So like, a lot would go into that turnaround and changing, fixing all that. I know the first 4 weeks of the college football season, I'm like, there's another game at Jerryland, every single week, and they weren't even places that were close. They were everywhere. Just if Jerry could book a college football game there, he was. If he can book anything there,
he's essentially a promoter. He's a venue promoter.
That's what he is, because I know he's had WrestleMania there. He's had basketball.
Awesome. That I would like to see some WrestleMania there. That'd be killer.
They've had basketball. They've had football, obviously. But the next thing on the chopping block is a big fight. I think Canelo had actually fought there.
No.
But I don't think that it sold what they thought it would. But you had Canelo versus Canelo.
People don't know Canelo. I mean, He's the best boxer right now. He just beat Triple G, and nobody, you heard a blip on the radar about it, and that was it.
Yeah, so I think Conor would sell that out, and I'm going to make the bold prediction now. Conor McGregor's next fight will be at Jerryland.
I like it.
Everybody would go to that. Everybody would go. So you wanted to talk a little bit about the USA World Team. We had talked about, I had already forgot where they're going to go wrestle.
Budapest, Hungary.
So if you want, go ahead, take the next couple minutes to just talk about that.
Just real quick. I mean, as far as the USA Wrestling goes, there's never been a better freestyle team than the one they're sending over. Just starting from little baby guys to big guys, they got Thomas Gilman, Really, the only two guys' names that I don't recognize are Nashawn Garrett and James Green. But they got to be badasses if they made the team. Sandwiched in between them is Logan Stieber, four-time NCAA champ. And then at 63, you got Burrow. Listen to this lineup. Jordan Burroughs, Kyle Dake, David Taylor, Jaden Cox, Kyle Snyder, and Gwiz.
That's crazy.
That's our 163 through heavyweight.
Murderer's Row.
I don't see how we don't. It would have to be an insane catastrophe for the freestyle team not to leave with the gold here. As far as the women go, you got local from Carbondale, Allie Reagan, Adeline Gray still on the team, Helen Mara-Lewis. I forget how you say her last name. First ever women's gold medalist. And also, I heard John Kavanaugh saying she actually popped in at during Connor's camp this last time and helped him out a little bit.
Wow.
And then a little tiny shout out to the Greco team. I didn't recognize anybody on that team except for Ellis Coleman and Adam Kuhn, who's the guy going to go be a... I'll tell the quick story about him. He's a gigantic heavyweight, runner-up to Gwiz a few times in the finals, lost to Kyle Snyder, real close match in the NCAA finals. So he runnered up at the NCAAs, and then like a month and a half later, he wrestled the Greco to make the Greco team. Pinned, I think the dude's named Robbie Smith, who's been our heavyweight at Greco for the last several years, and had wins over Kuhn. He pinned Kuhn. Kuhn left the arena, got in a car, drove to the airport, flew like 1,600 miles to the next day. He had to wrestle the freestyle world team trials and ended up being a runner-up to Gwiz again. So Adam Kuhn's a badass, going to be an astronaut someday. He's like 7 foot tall, 300 pounds. You thought Karatanov needed a big parachute? Adam Kuhn needs 3 big parachutes. So just a little fun, We're kind of wrestling guys, and I kind of keep up with the sport a little bit as much as I can without succumbing to the to the lockdown of the flow wrestling, which is where you'll have to get in order to watch these. But Allie Reagan, she's a local. I think she's the favorite to win the gold, or at least up there. Helen and Adeline Gray also. We could have 3 golds on the women's freestyle team, and seriously, we could have 6 or more gold medals at the World Champions for the freestyle men's. Pretty nuts. Historically speaking, this is going to be a nuts year for all the USA wrestling teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that they're probably in the peak that the USA has probably been. And that's crazy to think about with, all the, I guess, legends that you have with USA Wrestling. So anything else that you'd like to hit on? I mean, this show's basically had everything you could ask for. It had the one moment that I've been calling for since this thing started, the Shackelford breakdown of his, his big time in the spotlight, and then Pat Miletich ultimately crushing his dream.
I'm not a pussy, Mr. Miletich.
Pat Miletich, if you're listening, Shackelford can do 12 push-ups. Anything else, though?
Nope.
Okay.
Keep listening, keep downloading, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all that fancy frou-frou stuff, and keep telling your friends.
Absolutely, guys. Next week we will have fights to break down, so call your bookie, call your buddies, and on that note, for Drake, for Leighton C. and his phenomenal question, we will say it, and for Mr. Thomas R. Shackelford, Dippers, as always, stay saucy.